Hello guys, I'm Trick with a Twist. Today I'll show you how to create your own cool after image effect for your player in Gamemaker Studio 2. So if you guys are familiar at all with games such as Sonic Mania, there are moments where when the player goes fast, you can see after images of the player sprite, and it creates a very cool effect. So we're going to try to recreate that in Gamemaker. So before we go into coding the after image effect, there's a few steps that we have to take to create a setup for that. So as you can see, I already have created an example project. So what we're going to need is a sprite for our player. I just took this Sonic sprite I got from Google Images, and we're going to need a room. Got this room here. Then we're going to need two objects. um, an object for a player, and then very soon we're going to make another object for the after image effect. So for the setup, um, we're going to have things really simple. We're just going to have a simple um, movement script for the player. So if you press like the left arrow key, player goes left, right arrow key, player goes right. So to do this, we're going to go create a step event for the player. Okay, I'm just going to write down a comment here. Player movement code. And we're going to create two variables. We're going to create a variable called key right, and we're going to create a variable called key left. And key right is going to equal keyboard check VK right. So what this means here is that depending on whether you are holding or clicking the right arrow key right is going to return a specific value or number. So if you're not pressing the right arrow key right is going to return 0 for false, and if you are, then it's going to return 1 for true. So we're basically going to just copy paste this code and put this in the key left. And instead of having the inside argument of keyboard check be VK right, we can change that to VK left. VK, by the way, I think that just means virtual keyboard. So we got these two variables here. Now we need to have an if statement, right? Because we just have variables. We're not actually coded. We haven't coded the player to do anything yet. So we're gonna make an if statement. So if so we're gonna so to make the player go right, we're gonna code if key right equals 1 and key left equals 0, then x equals x plus 1. So the x position of the player is going to increase, which means it's going to go to the right of the screen every time we press the right arrow key and not the left arrow key. So we're going to copy and paste this code again. This time we're going to change this key right to key left and change this key left to key right. And instead of having x equal x plus 1, we'll have x equal x minus 1. So that way the player is going to move to the left. So we have this so far. This is our code so far. Let's put this object in our room and test it out to see if everything is working the way it should work. Usually takes a minute to build. As you can see here, player is indeed moving. So this is good. Everything is working. Let's just make him go a little faster because, Sonic, he's got to go fast. He's that kind of guy. So let's change these values to 20. Oh, there we go. He's one fast hedgehog. Okay, so now we're going to code the actual after image effect now that we have our movement code. So before we start making the code, we're going to want to create another object. This object is going to be what makes our after image effect happen. So we're going to create an object. Let's call this O after image, and we'll give it the same sprite as the player's sprite. So example, that's what I called my sprite that I'm using here. So for its create event, we're going to have its image alpha equal 1. So the image alpha of a sprite basically determines how visible it is. If the image alpha is 1, then the sprite is visible, but when it's 0, the object becomes transparent, like you can't see it. So we're going to use this to help us create our effect. So the secret to making this effect is actually pretty simple. So after we made this create event, we're going to add another event. We're going to add a step event to O after image. So after this object gets created, we're going to want it to have the same image index as the player. So we just type image index equals O player dot image index. And for you guys who are in the loop, image index is just referring to the frame of a sprite of an object. This way, both of the objects will look exactly the same. So we have that. Now we're going to actually code in the after image fade effect. So I'm just going to make a comment, fade. So we're going to make an if statement. If image alpha equals 1, oops, then I'm going to make another if statement. If image alpha is, okay, you know what? Sorry guys. Um, I think this is a better idea. Okay. If image alpha is greater than 0, then image alpha equals image alpha minus, and then we're going to decrease the value of the image alpha by a very small number because step events, depending on your frames per second, my frames per second is set to 60, I believe. So the stuff that happens in a step event is going to happen like 60 times a second. So I'm going to put in 0.2. Else instance destroy. Oops. Okay. So what this if else statement means is the image alpha is is greater than 0, which means that it's visible. Then until it's equal to or less than 0, it's going to decrease its value, which means it's going to get less and less visible over a period of time. Then once image alpha is no longer greater than 0, the object destroys itself, so it removes itself. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to O player. It's going to go to its create event, and we're going to make a cooldown basically. So we're going to make it, so I'm just going to make a comment right here, cooldown. What we're going to want to do next is create two local variables in our event. So we're going to create cooldown, which equals 1, and then cooldown current, which equals 0. And then we're going to move on to the step event. And just to separate this player movement code from the cooldown code, I'm just going to put this comment here, cooldown code. So we're just going to have a regular if and else statement here. So we're going to type down if cooldown current does not equal cooldown, then cooldown current plus equals, or I'm just going to put equals cooldown current plus, and remember what I said about step events, depending on your frames per second, mine's the 60, so that means that whatever happens in here is going to happen 60 times a second. So I'm just going to put down a very small number, maybe 20 over 60 or whatever. So I'm going to put that. And then for else, so this is when cooldown current equals cooldown. Then instance create layer X, Y. Okay, so before we finish filling in this argument, let's just create another layer for our after image. I'm just going to call this layer after image layer. So then it's going to ask us for the layer. So after image layer. So then you just have to name the object that we want to have spawned in the layer. So all after image, just type down all after image. Then we got that done. And then after that, we set cooldown current to 0. And you know what? I think I'll just change this code to from not equals to less than. Okay, so the reason why we're making this cooldown code is so that we can create our effect to have an after image spawn in a specific amount of time that we can set to whatever we want. Because some devs, they wouldn't want their after image effect to immediately spawn a bunch of images. It could like slow down the game or something. So that's why we set up this cooldown code, spawn our after image object. So now that we finished that, let's test our thing out and hopefully it works. Oh, wow. It's a very nice effect. As you can see, there's a little after image trail following Sonic, and it looks very nice. We can make the cooldown even smaller to see what happens. Wow, that looks very nice. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial, guys. I hope you found this useful. This is my first time ever making a tutorial like this, so I apologize if this doesn't come off as professional or anything like that. Um, Comment down below, and if you want me to do another kind of tutorial, and I hope you have a nice day. Uh, Bye.